welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Always a delight when we have a chance to sit down with Megan Barth. She's an independent investigative journalist. And when she speaks, even E.F. Hutton takes notes.
Is he still around?
I don't know. Just thought I'd throw that in.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
I like it.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Perry?
Good. Do you have ballroom syndrome?
I don't even know what that is. Oh.
Yeah. It's called TBS now, Trump Ballroom Syndrome. Yeah.
We got TDS, we got TBS. Just completely a faux outrage. And, what you're seeing really is the Democrats in the last throes of relativity. I don't think if you ask anyone on the street or any elected Democrat for that matter, what is their platform? How are they going to win in 2026? I really don't know who their leader is. I don't know what their platform is. I don't know what they stand for. Now, I certainly know, as you do and your audience does, what they stand against. Yeah. And that is secure borders and the Trump administration. It's pretty clear.
I'm just trying, I've often said lately, they got a leak on all four tires and they're almost all flat.
Yeah.
But I'm really just trying to scratch my head. Why are they against this ballroom? I mean, every president does something within the White House to kind of leave their mark. What is it that has got them so upset about this?
Well, I think it's feigned outrage. The Democrats know history, even though they like to rewrite it and tear it down. But, anything that they can try as a trial balloon in order to, stir up their base and they'll try anything. They're grasping at straws, quite frankly, to disparage Trump and the Trump administration. And they don't want to talk about their shutdown. They don't want to talk about the absolute abuse and graft in the welfare system that they oversaw and created, quite frankly. So they don't want to talk about the issues and the reasons why President Trump was elected by a mandate. Mm-hmm. He won thousands of counties, every single swing state, nearly 80 million votes, the popular vote. He chipped away at their base, their demographic base, whether that was Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, white Americans, youth specifically. And so the Democrats are just trying to deflect and create more outrage. As you saw in the No Kings rally, we haven't talked in a while, so I'm sure we have a lot to cover.
All right, I want to come to the shutdown. They're coming up on Saturday, November 1st, which is a big time for a kind of a landmarker, so to speak, as it relates to foods assistance. And from what I understand, even the Federal Workers Union is saying to the Democrats, knock it off. But they seem to be going right through this. And the last report I read is that their income to the DNC is at an all-time low. What more do they need to realize they're on the wrong road?
Yeah, and what they are trying to do is hijack the entire federal government because they lost an election. And what they're doing is hijacking the military, they're hijacking the American people, and they're hijacking, just quite frankly, the federal government. How dare they, quite frankly, think that they have a leg to stand on and from a position of power, nonetheless, when they are the ones that destroyed the healthcare insurance system we had here in America. They knew that the subsidies of, quote unquote, the Affordable Care Act was expiring at the end of this year. They had plenty of time to create a new CR while Joe Biden was in power to extend, but they chose not to. And then let's think about this from the bigger picture. You don't have to be an economist, nor do you have to be an expert in the healthcare or insurance field to understand that something called the Affordable Care Act needs subsidies. If it was affordable, it wouldn't need subsidies. And guess where these subsidies go? These subsidies go to who? The insurance companies, the Democrats' donors. That's who they're trying to prop up. They're not propping up the American people. They are propping up the insurance companies because, for example, let's say your premium is $800, but it's going to be subsidized because it's Obamacare. So you only pay $400, but that premium is still $800 because it's getting a 50% subsidy. And that's just an example. But if something was affordable, it would not need a government subsidy to begin with. We were told in 2008, 2009, when this passed, that if we liked our doctor, we could keep our doctor. If we liked our insurance plan, it's going to be the same thing. In fact, it's going to be more affordable. Healthcare, 120,000, 200,000 people are now going to have healthcare. Well, if you recall, 2 million people were killed off their employer plans when Obamacare passed within the first 6 months. I didn't hear the Democrats screaming about the 2 million people that lost their beloved healthcare insurance plan like I did. And so we need to have a much broader conversation about the failure of Obamacare, because that's exactly what it is. It's a failure. It was designed to fail, as Democrats continue now again to use their old canard that when they broke something, oh, well, we're just going to get a bigger government program to make it better, and that's Medicaid for all. They call it Medicare for all, but it's really Medicaid for all.
Well explained. That is excellent. Well explained. So, Megan, what happens here? I mean, we're now in the second longest shutdown. We may go into the longest shutdown. How does Schumer get out of this?
Well, that's the tricky question for Chuck Schumer, because he's looking at a primary opponent, perhaps AOC, because she has dreams of becoming the first or youngest Latina senator, Sandy from the Bronx. So, I think with the pressure from the federal employees union, that might convince him to break and kind of do a wink, wink, nod, nod behind the doors. To actually gather more than 3 senators on the Democratic side to work in a bipartisan manner and pass a CR that they've passed 13 times before. They can negotiate then about the failure of Obamacare. They can negotiate perhaps how they want to fix it, or maybe they don't. And they don't, honestly, because now you have Bernie Sanders, who I guess is the leader of the Democratic Party, or AOC, or Hakeem Jeffries, or perhaps it's Mamdani out of New York, since every Democrat seems to be suddenly in the late hour endorsing a Muslim communist who is naturally naturalized as a Ugandan. And so, we'll see what happens, but there's going to have to be a breaking point. And I'm very proud that the Republicans have not bent the knee.
Yeah.
The Democrats are the ones in the minority. The Republicans are the ones in the majority. However, we need 60 votes in the Senate, for those who failed a physics class, to get this CR across the president's desk.
Well, like I said earlier, their key union, that's the Federal Workers Union, now pointing their finger directly at and naming the Democrats. There's some added pressure, so I guess we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. And may I say one more thing? I think what the Democrats might be doing, because they wanted to wait for the No Kings rally to see how many buffoons they could get out on the street. They tell me it's 7 million. I have a hard time believing that. Who cares? We had close to 80 million people in November show up on the streets and vote for Donald Trump. But I think they might be waiting for the next 2 elections to test the waters, and that is the Virginia governorship, and that is the New York City mayoral race. Mm-hmm. And that's what, November 4th-ish, something around there?
Right.
So they might want to see how, they're radical in Virginia and they're communist in New York fares in the coming election.
Okay, that's where I was going to go next, New York. It looks like Mamdani is losing support. Some of the recent polls show that he's lost maybe as high as 25%. I mean, it's hard to believe that Cuomo was going to be the person up against him. But the numbers are changing fast. You have a feel for it?
I really don't. I think that he has still the edge and the advantage, and I think Cuomo is very unpopular. I think what you are seeing is Silva gaining steam. Now, is he going to have enough steam to come out from third place and catch Mondami? I think something more earth-shattering as far as bad news and more lies that Mondami will tell. For example, you know, he said that his aunt was afraid to wear a hijab in New York after 9/11. Well, it come to find out she lived in Uganda. So unless she was zooming into Manhattan, I don't understand how that happened. But this, again, is taqiyya. It's part of the Muslim tradition where it's okay to lie. It's okay to lie, you know, as long as you're doing it on behalf of the caliphate. But so he's been caught in a lie. His policies are now being challenged by many, many people, including working class New Yorkers who are not supporting Mondami. They might be supporting Cuomo. A lot of them are supporting Silva. But what you're seeing in the support of Mondami are, you know, the Ivy League educated kids who have never worked a day in their life, got a gender studies degree from Columbia University, and then wonders why they can't get a job. And so you have this underground, or I would say this underbelly elite, if you will, of course, white majority. If you look at Mondami's last rally when he was with his co-communists, AOC and Bernie Sanders and Kathy Hochul, the crowd was white. I mean, there was a few Indians sitting behind him, but when you looked at the crowd, it was all white. And when, again, you have the, Gen Zers who didn't live through 9/11. They weren't born yet, and they certainly probably weren't taught that in school. And if they were taught that in school, it was America's fault. And so, you know, you still have businesses, New Yorkers, the bodega owners that aren't supporting Mondami. But we will see if New York has imported enough illegal aliens and enough foreign nationals to give a foreign national one of the largest seats in the country.
Shocking. It's shocking that
Really?
the probability of him winning is still very high, and the residual effect of that, I mean, yeah, you can say, well, that's New York. No, that could be a barrel weather win for the left as an example where things are going to go.
Well, and part of me kind of is cheering him on. And the only reason, you know, I would want him to test out socialism on the streets of New York, because then we can finally say when New York is in complete economic rubble and 25% or more of businesses have fled and the bodega owners have been put out of business by quote unquote government grocery stores, which will end up empty like they are in Cuba. You can't even buy cheese at a government grocery store in Cuba. You can't buy packages of meat. You can buy whatever they're going to have you buy. But then we can at least say it's not that socialism didn't work in Venezuela. Venezuela is the perfect way, and the perfect example, rather, of how socialism works. It creates mass poverty. It creates mass starvation. It forces businesses to close. It forces businesses to leave. And what it does is actually create two classes of people.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I think is going to happen. And perhaps then the uneducated, overly educated Ivy League white kids will learn that their dreams of socialism is simply that, a pipe dream.
One quick question before I take a break. Does Wall Street pack up and leave New York eventually?
I would think so. I mean, of course, you have a lot of, you know, limousine liberals, as Rush Limbaugh used to call them. And so, you know, I think that the New York Stock Exchange will hopefully always be there. I mean, can we have at least some part of our history that the Democrats don't destroy?
Okay. All right, let me take a quick break. Got some more questions. Always a joy to have Megan with us. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Always a joy and an honor to have with us Megan Barth, independent investigative journalist, and she's just been around the block so many times that they've named it after her.
Yes. You can now find my work on thecaliforniapost.com.
Megan Way, right there. There it is, Megan Way. Okay, the president's on an interesting trip. On his way over, by the way, he lands a Qatar and refuels, and they come on board Air Force One and talk to him, the leaders there at Qatar. That's really amazing. He goes off to Malaysia, Japan, China, and he says he's even open to meeting with North Korea. What do you think of this go-around?
Well, I think it's stunning what he's accomplished in just, what are we in 10 months now of his presidency? And what this trip has done, this Asian trip has done, is really put China on its heels, specifically when it comes to minerals, precious minerals. China has gone around while Joe Biden was opening our borders and kowtowing to communists and Muslim extremists. China was quietly and effectively building their stockpile through acquisitions of mines throughout the world for rare earth minerals. And what Trump now has done is signed agreements with these countries to put America first when it comes to sourcing. Japan just inked a $550 billion, which is a $500 billion deal to invest in the United States. I'm lost on how many trillions of dollars now Trump has brought in just a short 9 or 10 months into this country from both American manufacturers as well as our allies across the pond. This was a huge trip that is being underplayed, of course, in the press. But I think that the specific deal with China, Malaysia, Taiwan, etc., is going to put Xi Jinping on his heels and realize that no, China is not going to be the #1 world power. America will claw our way out of the malaise of the Biden administration, which put America last. And this trip shows that Donald Trump is pretty much, quite frankly, and the American people were right to elect him, the only man that could do it.
They're saying one of his agenda all along with this trip is to get between China and Russia by making other types of deals, using tariffs, putting them on, taking them off, rare earth minerals, all of that, but to create a relationship, a trade relationship, an improved trade relationship with China and slowing down the relationship with Russia. He appears to be on track for that, don't you think? Yeah,
I think so. And, Trump, this trip, the Canadian Prime Minister, who's a globalist, what this trip has done really is also not only put China on its heels, but it's put the globalists, the international bankers on their heels as well. Because Trump is using this strategy as an anti-globalist strategy where, a very few anointed, international bankers, et cetera, are not going to be commandeering the world economy like they want to. And so that's why Canada is freaking out and, talking about tariffs and creating bogus commercials aired during the World Series. So it's really putting a lot of these bad actors, these globalists, he's checked them pretty hard, to use a hockey term.
Yep. The House is now voted to investigate every one of former President Joe Biden's auto-pen signatures to see if he really was cognitive or behind the approval of those. Let's just assume for a moment, rhetorically, that they proved that he wasn't involved. Then what? I mean, how do they appeal that to a higher authority?
Well, that's a great question, and one probably that I don't have the best answer for. But I assume that this would go through constitutional review, especially when you look at pardons. Many of these auto pen signatures were related to pardons. I can't remember how many pardons Biden signed. It was like 8,000 or something ridiculous. And he was even preemptively pardoning people who had not been charged with the crime. So it was kind of being like, hey, we know we did something wrong. And in case we lose the next election, we want to make sure they're safe.
Yeah, right.
And so I think the validity of those pardons will definitely come into question. And then, of course, on top of that, if there was any major pieces of legislation that were signed under Joe Biden and not by Joe Biden, that would likely be challenged. And I don't know that they would necessarily hold up constitutional muster, nor would they be deemed legal.
Well, we'll see what happens, because the only one that had his personal signature on was for his son. The rest are auto pins. I mean, you got to ask the big question here. You know.
Yeah, and that kind of I'm sorry, that kind of really screamed, and I didn't realize that, and thank you for reminding me of that. They wrestled the old man out of bed in order to scratch his signature for his son.
Yeah.
That tells me that they knew they needed that, right?
Right.
In order to protect his family, or at least his son.
Right. That's the only one that has a signature. The rest of them were auto pin. Pretty amazing.
So you're telling me 8,000 pardons, he only signed one of them? I did not know that.
Yeah.
This is news to me. I'm blown away.
What's going on with in ICE these days? A little bit of a shakeup in the interior there. What's going on from your perspective?
I think this is definitely something that's likely needed. It tells me, especially when you look at the places where, you know, these 10 agents are being either demoted or removed, they're in hotbed zones of illegal alien places. So you're looking at Phoenix, you're looking at Chicago, you're looking at San Francisco, you're looking at Los Angeles, you're looking at El Paso, a lot of border states. And this tells me that perhaps these agents have been far too long under many administrations in their roles or in ICE, and they might be acting too bureaucratically. And so there needs to be a changing of the guard at that level.
Okay. Couple of other quick things. Where do you think Governor Newsom said yes, he's interested in becoming president, which is a nice way of saying he's running, but it doesn't seem he's getting any traction. I mean, he's trying to become the Trump of the left, and it doesn't seem to be working. How far down the road do you think he gets?
Well, looking at the Democratic field, he probably has the best chance as far as name ID. I would think that he has a pretty good chance, especially when he has, you know, Getty money behind him, despite the fact that he was on a podcast yesterday with a bunch of his homies, and he all of a sudden copped kind of a, you know, a ghetto-like or, you know, a black accent, if you will, talking about how he was raised on Wonder Bread and mac and cheese. Give me a break. He started a winery with Getty's money when he was like 25 years old. And he was voted best dressed, and he grew up with Getty money. I mean, his dad was a judge. His dad was a lawyer for the Getty family. The guy does nothing but lie. And that's a perfect Democratic candidate as far as being a liar. But he's also young enough, right? He has some appeal. He's got the name ID. And who else, honestly, is going to lead the field? Who is the Democratic leader? Who, and honestly, beyond a leader, who's on their bench?
Yeah, well, it's empty. By the way, a cute little tag came out where the president has run on MAGA, Make America Great Again. There is a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek that Governor Newsom needs to run on MUGA, M-U-G-A, the most useless governor in America.
Well, having fled California 10 years ago, I always say I made it just in the nick of time. And people are fleeing California. And when you look at the U-Haul rates, they're more expensive leaving California than they are going in, because you have more people leaving than you have going in.
Yeah. One quick question, and thank you for your time again. It looks like the Charlie Kirk's investigation has been postponed. I don't know what to read into that. Do you have any idea?
No, that's the first I've heard of that. I did not know the investigation. I was wondering what's been going on. I did hear that his partner, who I guess is a transgender furry, as far as not Charlie Kirk's partner, but his assassin's partner,
right,
is missing.
Yeah, for 6 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, so that might be part of the delay.
Okay. All right. I was just curious if you had some insight. Hey, good to see you, as always.
Great to see you too, Perry.
And
Thank you so much.
stay in the fight. We need you.
Oh, I don't plan on going anywhere.
Okay. Thank you. Good to see you.
You're welcome. You too.